Would the United States really gamble a $100 million stealth fighter just to eliminate a $70 drone, at a time when tensions in the Middle East are already sitting on a knife's edge? In the middle of the night, as the world slept, the US Navy quietly answered that question. What looked like excessive force was, in reality, a calculated signal sent under the cover of darkness. On Tuesday, February 3, 2026, the USS Abraham Lincoln, a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, was transients the Arabian Sea, roughly 500 miles off Iran's southern coastline, steadily moving toward the Strait of Hormuz. This is one of the most strategically sensitive waterways on the planet. And at that exact moment, according to operational tracking, an Iranian drone carrier launched a UAV from a nearby position, placing it directly on a path that intersected with the carrier's transit route. As the Lincoln continued forward, a destroyer within the carrier strike group's integrated defensive network detected the incoming contact. The target was soon identified as an Iranian SHAHED-139. Flying a direct and aggressive profile straight toward the carrier, this was not passive surveillance. The flight path showed no deviation, no loitering, and no attempt to maneuver away. What made this encounter different from previous incidents was not the drone itself, but the response. In the past, similar threats were handled using ship-based missiles or close-in weapon systems. This time, the interception was carried out by the carrier's primary air wing, specifically an F-35C Lightning II stealth fighter. The engagement began long before the drone could ever be seen with the naked eye. The USS Abraham Lincoln was surrounded by Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, each equipped with the Aegis combat system and Spy-1 radar, forming a layered defensive shield around the carrier. At the same time, an E-2D Advanced Hawkeye was already airborne, providing extended, over-the-horizon radar coverage. Far beyond what ship-based sensors could see, radar operators picked up a small, low observable contact, moving at a steady speed and holding a constant heading toward the carrier. The track was immediately flagged as hostile due to one critical factor. The drone failed to respond to standard de-escalation hails and continued on a collision course with a high-value naval asset. Further analysis confirmed the threat. The contact was indeed a SHAHED-139. A medium-altitude, long-endurance unmanned aerial vehicle, capable of carrying guided munitions, and frequently used in a one-way, suicide attack role. Given the risk, the commander of the carrier strike group made a decisive call: intercept the drone at a safe distance, well outside the range of the ship's own defensive systems. An F-35C Lightning II was immediately vectored toward the target. Using its advanced sensor fusion, the F-35C pilot acquired the drone from miles away. The aircraft systems merged radar, infrared, and electronic data into a single, seamless picture. On the pilot's helmet-mounted display, the drone's location, speed, and altitude appeared directly on the visor, allowing precise tracking through clouds and complete darkness. Once visual confirmation was achieved and the drone showed no sign of turning away, the rules of engagement for self-defense were clearly met. Authorization was granted. The pilot maneuvered into position and fired an AIM-9X Sidewinder air-to-air missile. Guided by the drone's heat signature, the missile struck its target moments later, detonating and destroying the UAV instantly. The pilot conducted a brief battle damage assessment pass, confirming the drone had been neutralized and posed no further threat. The USS Abraham Lincoln continued its transit, untouched, uninterrupted, and fully operational. But this raises the real question: why use a multi-million-dollar F-35C to shoot down a relatively cheap drone, instead of relying on the ship's own guns or missiles? So why did the Navy choose to deploy an F-35C stealth fighter, a platform costing tens of millions of dollars per flight hour, instead of simply letting the ship's own guns or missiles handle the threat? The answer comes down to distance, control, and survivability, three principles that define modern naval warfare. First, US naval doctrine is built around a concept known as defense in depth. The idea is simple but unforgiving: the farther away a threat is neutralized, the safer the ship remains. If a drone is being engaged by a carrier's deck guns, it has already closed to within 2 miles. At that distance, debris, explosives, or even a last-second course correction could still cause catastrophic damage. By launching a fighter, the Navy can intercept a threat 50 to 100 miles out, creating multiple layers of opportunity to stop it before it ever becomes critical. There is also a human factor that technology alone cannot replace. A radar contact is just a blip. It cannot tell commanders whether a drone is carrying a camera, electronic warfare equipment, or a high-explosive warhead. A pilot, however, can close in, visually inspect the target, and provide real-time intelligence that no sensor fusion system can fully replicate. That visual confirmation can mean the difference between restraint and escalation. And then there is deterrence. The presence of a fighter jet is itself a form of de-escalation. An F-35 can maneuver into view, shadow a drone, and issue clear warnings. If the UAV ignores those signals and continues its approach, hostile intent is no longer ambiguous. At that point, the use of force is not only justified, it is unavoidable. But what if the interceptor fails? What if the missile misses? Or the drone slips past the outer defense ring? That is where the carrier's close-in defense systems come into play. Even without air cover, the USS Abraham Lincoln is anything but vulnerable. At the forward sections of the ship, 2.50 caliber machine guns provide the most basic layer of defense. Moving aft, the carrier is protected on both sides by phalanx close-in weapon systems. Autonomous gun platforms designed to engage incoming threats in the final seconds before impact. Integrated alongside these systems are Sea Sparrow surface-to-air missiles, positioned to cover medium-range aerial threats. At the stern, additional launchers and close support weapons, such as the phalanx or ram systems, create overlapping fields of fire. Together, these systems form a dense defensive bubble around the ship. At the heart of this network lies a sophisticated sensor suite. Q-band search radar scans the surrounding airspace, while dedicated tracking and fire control radars lock onto targets with extreme precision. Beneath them sits the Phalanx's 20mm Gatling gun, capable of firing up to 4.500 rounds per minute, fed continuously from an internal ammunition drum. If a missile boat or fast attack craft attempts to close within roughly 2 miles, the close-in systems activate instantly, shredding the target in seconds. Against fast-moving aerial threats like modern drones, the Sea Sparrow missile provides another critical layer, with an effective range of approximately 50 kilometers, or 30 miles, allowing precise interception well before the threat reaches the inner defense zone. But the question still lingers: why place an American aircraft carrier in the Strait of Hormuz at all? According to US officials, the answer lies beneath layers of reinforced concrete. Intelligence assessments suggest that Iran has significantly hardened key underground facilities. In some cases, a single strike may no longer be sufficient. The carrier's role, therefore, extends beyond defense. It enables the enforcement of a no-fly zone, maintaining air superiority over one of the most volatile regions on Earth. That air dominance creates a critical opening, one that allows B-2 Spirit stealth bombers to penetrate enemy defenses and deliver massive bunker-busting munitions. This is where the strategy escalates. The US Air Force employs a tactic known as double tapping. The first bomber releases a GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator, a weapon designed to smash through reinforced rock and concrete. The bomb slams into the mountain, blasting open newly reinforced blast doors and structural layers. Seconds later, a second bomber releases another penetrator directly into the crater left by the first strike. That second weapon travels far deeper before detonating, generating a shockwave powerful enough to collapse the facility from the inside out. And this marks a critical shift from previous years. The campaign is no longer limited to striking nuclear infrastructure alone. The final phase represents the most significant shift in US strategy since 2025. This is no longer just about degrading nuclear facilities. The focus has expanded to the survival mechanisms of the regime itself. From beneath the waters of the Persian Gulf, the US Navy submarine USS Georgia launches a coordinated salvo of Tomahawk cruise missiles. Their targets are not factories or symbolic infrastructure. They are command nodes, IRGC barracks, intelligence headquarters, and operational nerve centers that enable internal repression and external aggression. The objective is clear: sever the chain of command. By crippling leadership, communications, and coordination, the regime's ability to respond militarily or domestically, is dramatically reduced.
But the
At the
satellite
same
imagery
time,
shows
to prevent
heavy
any
resistance
retaliatory
on the
strikes
north
against
face,
Israel or
Commander.
Saudi Arabia,
We should
US
consider the
planners
Kestrel
turn their
Pass
attention to
instead.
Iran's so-called missile cities, vast underground depots hidden deep within the Zagros Mountains. These facilities house large portions of Iran's ballistic missile arsenal. The goal is not simply destruction, it is containment. By collapsing access tunnels and sealing launch infrastructure underground, the strategy aims to bury the regime's sword before it can be drawn. This second strike is designed to be decisive, leaving no immediate path for escalation. By combining cyber warfare, space-based surveillance, electronic dominance, and the heaviest conventional weapons ever deployed, the United States constructs a scenario of total overmatch, one in which resistance becomes structurally impossible. But this raises a critical question. If B-2 Spirit bombers already struck these targets during Operation Midnight Hammer, why is a second strike necessary at all? The answer lies in intelligence. Post-strike assessments reveal that Iran moved critical nuclear materials both before and after the initial attack. In other words, while Midnight Hammer caused extensive damage, it did not eliminate the core of Iran's nuclear capability. To understand why, we need to revisit what actually happened. During Operation Midnight Hammer, the United States deployed 6 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, each armed with GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators, deep penetration bunker busters designed specifically for hardened targets like Fordo. The strikes focused on the mountain ridge above the underground tunnel network and enrichment halls, aiming to punch through reinforced layers and disrupt Iran's nuclear operations at their core. The B-2s also targeted at least 6 known tunnel entrances, key access points, critical to logistics and personnel movement. Post-strike satellite imagery, combined with independent weapons analysis, confirmed that at least 3 of the 4 main entrances suffered severe damage. Large craters were visible near these points, strongly suggesting internal collapse and infrastructure disruption. Approximately 1 hour before the B-2s entered Iranian airspace, a US Navy submarine launched more than 30 cruise missiles at the Isfahan nuclear complex. The near-simultaneous sea and air assault overwhelmed Iranian defenses, stretching radar coverage and interceptor capacity thin. At 6:40 p.m. Eastern Time, or 2:10 a.m. in Iran, the lead B-2 released 2 massive penetrators over Fordo. Over the next 25 minutes, a total of 14 MOPs were dropped across Fordo and Natanz, tearing into reinforced underground structures. Almost simultaneously, cruise missiles struck Isfahan with devastating precision. Once their payloads were delivered, the B-2s exited Iranian airspace as silently as they had arrived. Despite the scale of destruction, intelligence later confirmed a critical development. Iran had secretly relocated approximately 400 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium to an undisclosed location prior to the strikes. Satellite imagery provided early warning signs. In the days leading up to the attack, analysts observed unusual truck activity at Fordo, a convoy of 16 heavy cargo trucks, lined along the access road to the tunnel entrance. Such large-scale movement had not been observed before. By the following day, most of the trucks had vanished, with only a few spotted roughly a kilometer away. The timing and scale strongly indicated the evacuation of high-value nuclear material. Additional images showed bulldozers and heavy equipment positioned at tunnel entrances, likely sealing or backfilling access points, either to conceal activity or to mitigate further strikes. According to assessments by the International Atomic Energy Agency and US intelligence, underground halls and tunnel networks sustained major damage, and some were intentionally collapsed. Above-ground infrastructure, power systems, uranium conversion facilities, and metal production sites was heavily damaged or destroyed. Yet leaked assessments from the US Defense Intelligence Agency, based on CENTCOM battle damage analysis, reached a sobering conclusion. The core of Iran's nuclear program survived. Most centrifuges and enriched uranium stockpiles remained intact. As a result, analysts estimate Iran's nuclear ambitions were delayed by months, not eliminated. So where was the material moved? Experts believe Iran likely dispersed it across multiple locations. Possible destinations include intact underground tunnel networks near Isfahan, facilities with long histories of subterranean construction, or partially damaged sites like Natanz. Other possibilities include undeclared locations, military bases such as Parchin, or unknown deep bunkers. Dispersal reduces the risk of catastrophic loss from any single strike. And that brings us back to the present. This is why the second strike matters. It is not about repeating the first. It is about closing every remaining door, denying concealment, mobility, and recovery, from the F-35 intercepting a single drone, to strategic bombers reshaping mountains. Every action is part of the same message. This is no longer a warning. It is enforcement.